You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking like we're covering today's top boxing news.
Gary, when Tio brought your name up, he said y'all was friends. Do you
I
think
remember that.
do you think that's a
Man,
form of
listen,
ducking?
that, that's like a brother from another mother. He got a wild sense of humor, and some stuff sometimes even family can do some stuff that's not honorable. You know what I mean? And it rubbed me wrong with the stuff he been doing, but I feel like that was him pushing the agenda. That's his little whatever. He's just trying to work an angle for promotion. I feel like personally, but even within that, like don't lower your integrity. Have something. So I wanted to have words with him about it. That's still my guy. We will always be locked in. But back when we was in the Olympics, I told him, I said, listen, I love you. You my guy. But we're going to wind up being in the same weight division. And if you got a belt, I'm coming to take it. We're going to, you make your noise, you're going to make noise on your end. I'm going to make noise on my end. And eventually we're going to have to unify. We're going to have to fight for these belts so we're going to make it happen. Make it make sense. It was like, hey, if you say so. I'm like, hey, not free. He's like, I bet. So now that he got his title, I got mine. I would say let's go ahead and promote real heavy, get the buzz going, bring boxing back to his feet again, and then let it make sense, negotiation wise.
Teofimo Lopez is the biggest name at 140 pounds right now. Of the four champions that are there, he's got more profile than any of them. More than Gary Antuanne-Russell, than Richardson Hitchens, than Subriel Matias. So naturally, that makes him a target for all of them. That they would rather fight him than fight each other. Gary Russell's going after him. Gary Russell, who seems to have a friendship, a bond with Teofimo, but that's not going to get in the way of business. That if Gary can have the fight, he'll have the fight. What would a fight like that look like? Well, Teofimo has the right base style for an aggressive, come-forward puncher like a Gary Antuanne-Russell, though perhaps the size is the issue. That Teofimo's not a very big 140-pounder, Gary is. Sort of calls into question the same things that a Brian Norman fight would have called into question. That Teo has the right style for a guy like Brian, but does he have the right size? The same applies to Gary Antuanne-Russell. When you recall the Steve Claggett fight, and how Steve Claggett, a come-forward plotter, a pressure guy, a club-level fighter, was able to put Teofimo on the ropes and keep him on the ropes for long spells in their fight. What would happen if that were Gary? I'm really not sure, because where Teofimo looked one way with Steve Claggett, he looked another way with Arnold Barboza, who tried to come forward on Teofimo and paid for it. He lost the fight. But Arnold Barboza's no Gary Antuanne-Russell. He's not as athletic, not as explosive, not as physically strong. I'd rather a Gary Antuanne-Russell fight over, say, a Devin Haney fight or a Richardson Hitchens fight. Stylistically, it makes for a more fun fight to watch. Pressure fighter versus boxer puncher is more action-packed than boxer-puncher versus pure boxer, and that's what those other two fights would be. I would prefer to see Teofimo fight Gary than those aforementioned two guys, but therein lies the dilemma. Somebody's got to pay to make it happen, and I don't think it would be the PBC where Gary Antuanne-Russell still fights. At the same time, Teofimo is in a perpetual state of limbo, burning bridges wherever he goes.
Turkey, did Teofimo Lopez fumble the bag?
Oh, I don't understand.
Did he? Because he said he had some $11 million offer, that he was supposed to fight Devin, then it got lowered, then he went on Twitter, he was immature. Like, what happened with the T.O. Devin Haney situation? Did he fumble?
I want to tell you something.
Yes.
I don't go to the details with monies or something. You're saying numbers, but
Right.
if you don't respect my country and my religion, you will not have any chance to doing business with me.
Okay, so to follow up, does that mean that Keith Conley posted, Hitchens and Richardson Hitchens versus Teofimo? Is that a fight that you're not going to be involved in?
I will not be involved in this fight.
It's a little more than walking away from the Devin Haney fight. It's the disrespect from Teofimo and his heel turn. Turkey don't want nothing to do with that guy. So don't look to Saudi Arabian financing to make either a Hitchens fight or an Antuanne-Russell fight, or really any fight for Teofimo, because he went too far. Now, Gary Antuanne-Russell, even though he's friends with Teofimo, doesn't like what he's been doing. This sudden heel turn, he believes it's for the purposes of promotion, but still. Well, the whole idea in playing the heel is so that you can turn that vitriol into dollars, so that shows up in your marquee value and, in effect, shows up in your bank account. But what happens when there's a heel turn and that don't turn into money? What do you call that? A jackass. All you're doing is pissing people off and you're not benefiting from it. If we are to interpret Teofimo Lopez's recent behavior as being for the purposes of promotion, well, what is he promoting? Because it's not turning into money. You just burnt the bridge to Saudi Arabia and a big Saudi bag, so what do you do now? You go back to Top Rank and fight mandatories? What? You're not gonna make it Top Rank what you could have made in Saudi. Now, you could try to convince Matchroom to finance the Richardson-Hitchens fight, but you won't make it Matchroom what you could have made it Saudi, and bear in mind that it's not like Teofimo likes Top Rank or Matchroom. He doesn't. Apparently, he doesn't like Turkey or Saudi Arabia either. I was waiting for him to screw the pooch there. I knew he was gonna mess that up. Now, what the boxing community needs to stop doing is stop interpreting every stupid thing a fighter says, or every stupid thing a fighter does, as being promotion, being for the purposes of promotion. No, sometimes the guys are just dumb. Yeah, sometimes the guy's just stupid and he's not promoting anything. So is there anybody left that Teofimo hasn't burnt bridges with? Is there anybody left that he can work with that he hasn't worked with yet? MVP. He hasn't worked with Jake Paul. He hasn't worked with Nikisa Badarian. No, I don't think MVP's pockets are as deep as Turkey's, but they are pretty deep by themselves, to where maybe they could finance a fight between Teofimo and Gary Antuanne-Russell, or Teofimo and Richardson Hitchens. Maybe. They are working with Netflix after all. But with Teofimo, it feels like it's only a matter of time before he burns another bridge, because he doesn't seem to get along with anyone that he's worked with so far. He doesn't like the people at Top Rank. He doesn't like the people at Matchroom. For whatever reason, he doesn't like Turkey. If he starts working with Jake and Nikisa, he's probably going to end up not liking them. He's probably going to end up having problems with them, because underneath it all, he's the problem. It's not that he has a problem with Top Rank or Matchroom or Turkey. It's that he's the problem wherever he goes. So if he goes to MVP, it could be more of the same. He can't help it. He is his own worst enemy. Kicked out of the kingdom. Don't look to Turkey to finance any of Teofimo's fights moving forward. He went too far. God only knows why. In men's super middleweight news, in a recent interview with Brunch Boxing, WBC president Mauricio Suleiman said Christian Mbilli will defend his interim WBC super middleweight title against Hamza Sheeraz, where initially they were playing with the idea of putting Christian in there with Lester Martinez of Guatemala. They're swapping him out for Hamza. So soon after Hamza's big knockout win over Edgar Berlanga, he jeopardizes all of the momentum he's amassed from that knockout, because where Edgar Berlanga is a hapless fighter with no real ability, you can't say that about Christian. Christian has some amateur experience, and in the pros, he's proven himself formidable. He would fight the fight that Edgar didn't fight. What fight is that? An inside fight, a close quarters fight. Christian Mbilli has a stronger sense of identity. As far as who and what he is as a boxer, he's a pressure guy through and through. What he's not is a failed puncher pretending to be a boxer like Edgar Berlanga, because when he started, they were billing him as a knockout merchant, as a puncher, and then when the knockout stopped, he wanted to box. This guy's got an identity crisis, caught between styles. Whereas Christian knows exactly who and what he is and how he's going to go about fighting a fight. For better or worse, he's a pressure fighter. From one fight to the next, a lot doesn't change. How does that play out in a Shiraz fight? Well, he would fight the fight that Edgar was supposed to fight. A close quarters fight, an inside fight. When you fight in a fighter who's noticeably taller than you are and longer than you are, you gotta get inside on him, past those long arms, to work him from the inside out. Within close quarters, the shorter guy with the shorter arms has the advantage, and in this situation, that would be Christian. Punch for punch. I think Hamza punches harder than Christian. In terms of single punching power, I think Hamza has more of it, but it may be difficult to land on Christian to deliver that power because Christian is already noticeably shorter than Hamza Sheeraz, and when he's barreling forward, he's going to make himself an even smaller target by bending at the waist and knees, coming in at a slight crouch to get under and or around the straight punches of Hamza, and if he gets inside, he can do damage. Or get damaged trying to get there. The punch of the day for Hamza Sheeraz has to be an uppercut. If you're talking about a fighter that's noticeably shorter than you are, that's hunkering down, the money punch really is the uppercut, and you can do a lot of damage by properly timing it and landing it against a smaller target coming in. Might be a bit more difficult to land the straight punches on a shorter fighter that can get under them, and it's the same with the hooks. He might weave under those and come over the top with looping shots, but the uppercut, because he's already hunkering down, because he's already shorter than you are, and you know he has to come forward. To land anything, the shorter fighter has to come forward. The uppercut's the ticket! That's the one. And because Hamza is noticeably taller, he can do a lot of damage in a single punch if he can land that one, really turn his hips into it to drive that punch. So because he has long arms, he does need to give himself room to throw it, so you take that half step back before you let it go. I like the fight. I like it even better than the Lester Martinez fight. It's high stakes for both fighters. Christian gambles his WBC interim title that can be used as a segue to challenge Canelo next year, and at the same time, Hamza gambles his unbeaten record and all the momentum he's amassed as a result of knocking out Edgar Berlanga. It's high stakes. And you can bet that the winner of the fight will challenge Canelo next year, provided that Canelo beats Terence Crawford this one. But that's good news. Rolling the dice with Edgar Berlanga for Hamza Sheeraz is opening all sorts of doors to all sorts of opportunities.
I'm not quite sure that's going to happen. I think you would have to pay Canelo an astronomical amount of money. Is it worth to pay Canelo that astronomical amount of money? Because he already makes crazy money. So for him to take the kind of money to fight David Benavidez, where you basically say, okay, I'm willing to get the shit beat out of me for this amount of money, you know, because that's what's going to happen if those two fight. So is there a price worth on that where his image and his brand takes a hit? You know how much money you got to pay the guy? Because think about it. He's making $80 million for Crawford, right?
Right.
He asked back in the day for $250 million for Benavidez. Goes to show you just how little he believed in himself to ask for that kind of crazy number just for Benavidez when he's willing to take $80 million for Crawford. So he himself knows what's going to happen if he fights Benavidez by giving that number. But it's not just the loss and the getting run over like a train. It's also the hit your image takes, your brand takes, because Canelo is a monster brand. And so post-retirement, Canelo can still continue this massive image, massive brand. But if you get run over where they got to peel you off the canvas like roadkill after Benavidez is done with you, because I think that's what's going to happen, then I don't know that that's worth it, even $200 million, because you got so much money already. Is it worth messing up your brand for later on? I don't know that Canelo will be willing to take it no matter how much. I mean, you'd have to give him crazy money. And that goes back to what Lance said about the financials. Is that then worth it? You can spend that money in other ways and help boxing. Forget giving Canelo $300 million to fight David Benavidez.
Right.
Can you imagine what you do with that $300 million if you spread it across the board and make so many top fights with other great fighters, other top fighters in their primes, make them fight one another? I think you spread that money correctly in that way. Forget Canelo, get rid of him, and start to spread this next generation of superstardom, rivalries, great fights, make them fight each other. You would make multiple fights like that with just that money alone.
I remember when Paulie was an active fighter. He idolized Floyd Mayweather, Floyd who often came under criticism for who he wasn't fighting at the time, or when he fought someone. Paulie idolized him anyway. But many of the criticisms that he is levying now against Canelo, he could have also levied against Floyd. in his heyday, that he never fought Paul Williams, or that he never fought Antonio Margarito, that he never fought Keith Thurman. There's an entire laundry list of names that Floyd Mayweather didn't fight. So that when Paulie, who used to idolize Floyd, now criticizes Canelo for tantamount to the same thing, it comes off as hypocritical. Now, I know that many years have passed, and perhaps Paulie Malignaggi's stance has changed. That if today's Paulie were back there with Floyd, you never know, maybe he would have said that stuff about him. He's laying it on pretty thick. He's doing that on purpose, saying that David is going to run over Canelo when he didn't run over David Morrell, who's a lot less experienced than Canelo and a lot less capable. He didn't run over a 37-year-old Alexander Vazdik. He didn't knock him out. Hell, he didn't even knock him down. The case that David Benavidez would plow through Canelo Alvarez is not a strong one, but Paulie makes it anyway. It's his opinion. He's entitled to it. It's a free country. The one thing he said that I actually agree with, that I happen to agree with, is given Turkey's resources, his means, and his money, so much of it shouldn't go to one direction or just some fighters. If the goal is to restore boxing to its former glory, perhaps some of that money would better service the sport if it were spread around to other divisions that need major fights to happen, like, say, the featherweight division. I say it all the time. You could make a fight with any two of the 4 champions that are there, and you're going to get a great fight every single time. You shouldn't just focus on the same pool of guys. Focus on the featherweight division or the super featherweight division and what champions are there. Sugar Munoz is just as much an action fighter as William Zepeda. Get that guy a unification match. And what about 140? If you like guys like William Zepeda, if you like guys like Subriel Matias, then you'll like Sugar Nunez. Get that guy an opportunity. He's IBF super featherweight champion. I would like to see him get a unification match. You think about 140, so you don't want to work with Teofimo because Teofimo crossed the line. But what about making a fight between Gary Antuanne-Russell, for example, and Richardson Hitchens? Or Gary Antuanne-Russell and Subriel Matias? Those are all action shootouts. Those are action fights. If the goal is to restore boxing to its former glory, we can't keep focusing on the same pool of guys. You have to spread the wealth, and what you'll find is you can get a fantastic fight for a fraction of the cost what you paid Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney and Teofimo to stink out the joint in Times Square. You can actually get more for less, and those fighters probably won't give you a hard time. Not that Turki El-Sheikh is out here looking for a bargain and clipping coupons, but it stands to reason that if you can get more for less, then why shouldn't you? You want quality fights? Look to some of these other divisions. Look to some of these other champions. Canelo is only one guy anyway. He can only fight but so many times a year. There are other fighters that could really use your help.